Hi, Dr. Althea Kaminske here for the Learning Scientists. I wrote a blog post a few months ago about forgetting. And I wrote it because I think it's something that's really interesting that gets a bad rap and it's a little counterintuitive. So I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about it a little bit more in depth here. When we're trying to remember something, which is what we talk about a lot as learning scientists, how can we remember more? How can we learn more? How can we improve our understanding? Usually we think of forgetting as the enemy in that instance, right? We're trying to remember more, not less, right? We want students in the classroom to remember what we talked about last time, not forget what we talked about last time. So we tend to take it as a sign that something is going wrong, that we're doing something bad if we forget. We think that we have bad memories, that it's not working. When I tell people that I study memory, they tell me how forgetful they are and how frustrating this is for them. So I think it's worth just taking a second to step back and kind of think about, why do we forget? What is the purpose of this? Is it because we are terrible at remembering things, because there's something wrong with us or our memory system? And I hope that I can convince you that no, that's not true. Actually, forgetting is really important. It's really crucial to how we remember. So this seems, again, kind of counterintuitive. How does forgetting help us remember? But let's pretend that I'm asking you where my water bottle is. And when I say water bottle, instead of thinking of the one that's mine, right, this water bottle that I brought in today, right, very specific one, instead of thinking of this specific water bottle, you think of every single water bottle that you have seen in your entire life. And it becomes really hard for you to go, okay, wait, which one was hers? Which one is the right one that I'm supposed to be remembering? We don't usually do that, though, when we try to remember things. If I say, where's my water bottle? You go, oh, it's probably the one that she just had. You have a lot of context clues to help you remember that specific thing. So in that case, forgetting helps us remember more because it helps us be more specific with our memories, right? We don't have to sort through a bunch of useless information about water bottles in order to find the right one. A better example might also be if you've parked your car someplace and you're trying to remember where you parked it. If it's like when I drive into work, then there are a few different places that I might park, a few different parking spots. Maybe it's behind the building, maybe it's in front of the building, and every once in a while I'll leave the building at the wrong entrance and then go, oh no, that's right, I parked out front today instead of out back, right? So in that case, my previous memories are hurting my ability to remember where I parked the car in this specific day at this specific time, right? Because I couldn't forget, it actually hurt my memory, right? And that's called interference. There's all kinds of other things. But what's kind of counterintuitive about that is it's not that I didn't remember that I have parked my car behind the building in the past, right? A lot of times I find myself in the situation where I can't remember where I parked my car because I remember too much about where I parked my car, right? I have too many things coming to mind, and that's not useful for me. I'm making ineffective choices and decisions, walking out of the wrong door, then having to turn around and walk back, right? So forgetting can actually help us because it helps us eliminate the potential things to remember that aren't useful for us. So there are a lot of things that we use to help us forget, right? We use context clues. We use kind of our best guess schemas, right? We have all kinds of tips and tricks that we use in order to forget the wrong thing and then hopefully remember the right thing. There's at least one other way in which forgetting is useful for us, and I wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit as well. So what we just talked about, we're talking about forgetting being useful because it's kind of eliminating other possibilities, and so we're hopefully only remembering the possibilities that are plausible in any given scenario. Forgetting can also be useful because it can create what we would call desirable difficulties. It makes it so that it's a little bit harder for us to actually go through that good retrieval process and reconstruct and rebuild our memories. So when I give my students a quiz in class and the question's coming from the beginning of that day's lecture, they've already forgotten it a little bit. And so they have to actually reconstruct and rebuild their memories and actually pull from long-term memory versus pulling from short-term memory. And the distinction there is a little fuzzy. When does it become short term? When does it become long term? But it seems to be short. The difference between short term and long term is about 2 minutes. But it's like when we start to forget things, when you just kind of start to forget it, that's when it's a good idea to practice recalling it. If we didn't have time to forget it, time to make it just a little bit more difficult, then that extra retrieval, me saying, hey, what did I tell you about the definition of desirable difficulties? If you didn't have time to forget what that was, then you wouldn't be able to experience the desirable difficulty of just having to put a little bit more effort to try to remember that. So forgetting is actually really good for us. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with your memory system. In fact, it means that there's something right going on with your memory. It's good to forget. We actually like forgetting. There are disorders where you can't forget, right? If you think about something like post-traumatic stress disorder, while there are certainly a lot of other things going on there, one of the hallmarks of that is reliving a memory that you very much do not want to. In that case, you would like to forget, right? There's something traumatic that has happened, and it would be very nice if you didn't have to relive and re-experience and think about this traumatic thing, if you could forget it. But you can't. It keeps happening, keeps coming back, right? And that, in turn, is very stressful. So there are disorders, there are people who have trouble forgetting, who would like to forget, but they can't. So forgetting is actually a very useful, very healthy, very good thing that our memory does. Of course, it's frustrating. Of course, we spend a lot of time as learning scientists talking about how to remember things and how to remember things better and understand and all of those. But I think it's worth pointing out that forgetting is actually good, and that hopefully this makes you feel a little bit less discouraged whenever you forgot something. You don't have to be so down on yourself and thinking, oh, my memory's terrible. No, memory's great. Memory's working fine. It's good to forget. Forgetting is actually really helpful.